Hi, I'm Vic Vogel. I host the podcast Building Renaissance Leaders. Now, on this segment, though, I just want to introduce you to the Interpersonal Communication Leadership course, which is going to accompany everything I do in the Renaissance Leadership Odyssey. If you don't know what that is, there are a lot of podcasts in front of this. Go back to the March podcast, and then there's also one that I just finished in April that enhances a little more on that. And I wanted to make it clear what the Renaissance Leadership Odyssey program was all about. It's more than just leadership training. It involves a restructuring of your organization to cope with leadership. So that's a little different philosophy than what is currently out there right now, which is basically outsource everything and don't worry about it so much. And consequently, people are finding leadership much weaker than it should be. In fact, it's declining. It's really not doing well at all under the current existing programs. So anyway, this interpersonal communication program is designed to help you become a much better communicator. And it's designed so that when you become a better communicator, you will, in fact, connect with your people more effectively, build a bond of trust that allows them to empower you to lead them. And that's the absolute most positive position you can be in order to lead people into a future that's going to be filled with complexity, stress, time crunches, just a whole lot of dynamics is going to make the upcoming world much more complex. We saw this with the pandemic. We've seen it in the last year or so with AI and its impact on business and the industry and frankly the country. We also have a whole world that is kind of going crazy around us right now. So we have to cope with that also as part of our life, and will be impacting our business, and leaders have to be ready to respond to that. So there are three programs I recommend in the Leadership Renaissance Odyssey. One is a psychological program, primarily positive intelligence by Shirzad Shamin. And that program is run by consultants that are certified through his program to help you better understand who you are as a leader, as a person first. Something we have spent virtually no time doing for decades for leaders to help them understand who they are, what they're about, their strengths and weaknesses from a personal standpoint as it relates to leadership. Help you figure out how to manage those through how you manage your brain and how you think. So this is all pretty positive stuff, I believe, that has been absent from nearly all leadership development. The second portion, and I'm excited because Daniel Goleman, who is basically the founder of emotional intelligence, the father of emotional intelligence, and there's a lot of positive thinking and work behind that, but his work in emotional intelligence has brought it into a really understandable format. And he has just launched, perfect timing, he has just launched his emotional intelligence program, the same way Shahzad Shamin has launched their program a few years back uh, around positive intelligence. And there's so much in common between those two, but they are also distinctly their own. And then I am about to complete the process of putting together the interpersonal communication course for leadership. I'm planning on launching that in July, in line with these other two areas that are already up and ready to go. And I'm encouraging people to start considering uh, the development of yourself as a Renaissance leader, if you're a leader now, so that you're ready for the future, and your position as a leader is going to be a little more secure. And also, if you're thinking about being a leader, or if you're unhappy with what's going on in your organization or your small business, now's the time to start leaping into this new paradigm of leadership. What we do know is, and again, if you just go back into looking at a couple of the last two podcasts I've done on this leadership, Renaissance Leadership Odyssey program, if you watch those a couple of times all the way through and get the gist of what I'm telling you, you're going to find some data in there that shows why we are declining in leadership right now. And that is not getting better, it's getting worse. And there are people now recognizing this. All that it's not just the United States, it's a worldwide void in leadership. It's leading to some really pretty significant things that can impact us in the future. So now's the time to stop it. The same way, if you had a bad thought in your mind and you need to stop it right there, and Shamin Shirzad teaches you how to do that, and start thinking in more positive, more open and creative ways of doing things. It'll improve things very much along the line of the emotional intelligence side of Daniel Goleman, and then get that communicated out to the rest of the world and the population, which is the interpersonal communication process. So I'm pretty excited about this whole Renaissance conversion, this whole paradigm change. These three areas, in interpersonal communication, the psychology and the sociology of it, are absolutely critical elements that you must master. You can't have one of those areas failing, because if you do, you're hurting yourself exponentially. I mean, you're crippling yourself almost. I put that in terms of gears and previous. Let's see. I have a logo that I normally put up. I don't think I have it on here right here on this particular program, but the logo is three gears intertwining. And if you break a cog on one of them, you literally stop everything. So that's kind of how it works, and why I want you to be proficient in all three, so you can be a highly effective leader, so we can start rebuilding our base of unity. And because when we become unified, we become much more powerful. Right now, what we're doing is we're breaking things down, we're dividing people, we're isolating people into categories. We don't even want to talk to people anymore, because social media is the method that is being professed as a way to communicate. And that's a very going to be a very complicated thing as you get into trying to keep people around. And you're not going to get robots in here fast enough to replace everybody you need on that job. So it's time to start looking at the paradigm change. So, what is the interpersonal communication course? I want to talk to you. I'm going to be doing it on E-camm. And uh, so I want to kind of show you that. Let's see, I've got myself here as a classroom person. I think I've let me assign myself here to guest one or student one, however you want to look at it. And as we go into a classroom environment, the classroom's going to look a little bit like this. Now, you don't see anything but the number one class, because it's, unless I have six people logged into the program, I can't show them to you. And where I have them placed is on my screen, but you can't see that. So what I'm going to kind of do is place you around so you can get a general idea what the classroom is going to look like online. So if you were going into number two, that would be number two. And this would be number three. And this would be number four. And this would be number five. And this would be number, let's see here, 6. Okay, so let me take you back to 1 here. All right, so we would have 6 students, and they would be pretty much lined out that way. Everybody has their mic open, so we don't have to worry about turn the mic on, turn the mic off, all that crap you tend to get engaged in that blocks you out. Everybody's mic will be open. Everybody will be able to hear what everybody else is saying, and we're not worried about if there's a siren in the background or something like that. This is an educational class. It's not a professional podcast that I'm putting out here to you. I want you to learn. I'm not so concerned about how you're dressed. I just would like you to have headsets and a microphone, and so we minimize external noises that way, but we're still going to hear some. So we're not going to worry about that. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom, you can cut your camera off and leave and then come back during the process. It's going to be casual. It's going to be just like you were in school. If you were taking a college course on interpersonal communication, it would consist of several classes because there's a lot involved in interpersonal communication. And you would sign up for each of those classes, and they would be scheduled on various nights or various times throughout your semester. And so we're doing about 18 hours of coursework here, so probably about 6 hours of what would be considered college credit hours. What you would be doing is you'd be going to school at night after work, and in the evenings for the next X number of weeks. And in this case, it's going to be 4 weeks. We're going to do 9 courses or 9 classes. They're going to be conducted over the course of a month, and so that breaks it down to 2 classes per week, and 3 on a short one on Saturday and the fourth week. So that's generally the outline of the course. Now, what makes it really good is it's like we can talk to each other the same way if we were sitting in a seminar graduate level course. And that's kind of the level you're getting here. What you are getting is not everything you can learn about interpersonal communication. You're getting this almost 7 years of education I put into this, and about the 40 years that I have put in as a leader and a consultant using all the stuff that I'm going to be teaching you to make leaders better, more effective, so that they can develop more skills more effectively. So what I found in assessing tens of thousands of employees and thousands of managers is that uh, what employees want managers to do better, and nearly all the surveys I did, was communication. When I talked to them about what they meant by that, it really broke down to interpersonal communication, or several aspects of interpersonal communication. And so I'm going to cover the things that I'm going to put in this course briefly with you. You can go to the website and look at them a little more in depth, but I'm going to cover them with you briefly so that you understand these are the things that I picked out of interpersonal communication, which I studied for 7 years. And and well, more than 7 years, almost 40 years now. And these are the things that I recognize that if I taught leaders how to do these things, they in fact were better at being a leader. They were communicating more effectively with their employees, and consequently, they were getting the uh, the engagement from the employee they needed to get, which is missing. It's just horribly missing right now. And so I guess I realized we had to make a paradigm change, and so that's what I'm recommending. So there's a lot more to Renaissance Leadership Odyssey than this interpersonal communication class. It's one of the 3 that I recommend that we put people through for sure. But there's additional courses you can take behind that, not from us, but that somebody who's consulting this area could help you understand the additional things you might want to learn. But for sure, these 3 are would take you 80% down the road, 80% down the road of improving your leadership to the point where you're going to be turning things around, building positive cultures, healthy cultures versus toxic cultures. Uh, that then gets to the other part of the Renaissance Leadership Odyssey, and that is how the organization needs to reorient itself towards leaders, the leadership role, how leaders should interact within the organization as a whole, and the dynamics associated with some of those changes. And those are the big paradigm changes we're talking about. And that's the structure and the role of leaders within the organization and the development and succession and sourcing and selection of leaders into the organization. And I'm going to recommend something that's going to be absolutely fought tooth and nail by a whole bunch of people. And that is, I'm going to recommend you bring them back bring both the selection, or well, because sourcing, interviewing, selecting, and training and development of leaders back into companies. Hire the people to do this. Keep it internal. And there's a lot of rationale I could go over to you. I'm not going to bother doing it right now about why that makes more sense than outsourcing it to everybody who all they did was monetize things. So now they design programs and they sell them back to you, or you send people to them. And I'm saying you don't need to send people out and spend money for a 4-day seminar that, if you watch these two previous podcasts of mine, are showing you are not getting any return on your investment. Nobody is remembering what they learned. Nobody's learning anything new. Well, they are. 30% of them are. 25 to 30% of the people you send off to training are learning something new. They are changing their behavior a little bit, and they are helping the organization a little bit, and virtually no employees are benefiting from it. That's basically what the data was saying. So let's talk a little bit about what well, let me say another thing. If I had a special guest come on, so I'm going to go ahead and move you down to, well, let's see. If I had a special guest come on, that person's going to be guest number 7. And so you're going to have to kind of imagine some of this, as my granddaughter would say. It's imagination. Um, I'm going to make that person number 7, and I'm going to show you how I can put that person into this class. So what you have is me and them talking, but what you have to imagine are the 6 people in the semicircle around us, because that's exactly how the class is aligned. So myself and this guest could be teaching this course together, along with all of the 6 people in that class, asking questions on the spot. And if, we got 2 hours out, that's pretty good time. But somebody make it interesting, and people may start asking questions about how they can solve certain things they're having trouble with or whatever right there in the class, and they can discuss it with a professional besides myself, and you have the other students to engage with. You're becoming a community, a team, if you will, an organized group of people focused on one thing: making your leadership better, making everybody in this classroom's leadership better. And also, if necessary, the guest and I can come out and spend some time. You're still engaged in all your classroom settings, but you happen to be seeing this particular image of it versus the one where everybody is surrounding us. So we have lots of options on how to make the classroom work. We do not have to break up into classrooms or anything like that. It's going to be a fairly simple, easy, relaxed, seminar based, casual learning environment, so to speak. And we're going to not, if you are somebody, for example, who is, let me put you back in. Let me put you in number 3 up there this time. If you are sitting in the classroom at number 3 up there, and you have something that you want to say, you can still raise your hand. I can still see your hand up there, and then I can say, yeah, what do you want, Vic? And you can ask the question, make the comment, whatever, the same way you would if you were sit in a classroom with a professor. So this is going to be a pretty dynamic program. I don't think we need to have a lot of flash and flare to go with it, but we are going to have a lot of opportunity to learn. We'll be getting stuff to you in advance for you to see videos, written materials, stuff like that. Before you come to class, there'll be some stuff you're going to be assigned to do between then and the next class, because these classes are sequenced in a manner that one follows the other, and you learn a little help. Whatever you learn in the first class is going to help you in the second class and third class and on down the road. So let's take a look at what that is. This is the where the course information is located. You could go to victorvogel.com, www.victorvogel.com. I'll put this in the description link too, so you can just click on it and you won't have to remember my name. I don't think it's hard to remember, but you might not have to. So right here, if we come in and click on here, you'll see that there's course content, but there's also an enrollment form if you decide to enroll in Czech. I have them booked out through December, and remember, I'm only able to put 6 people in the class at a time. So it's going to be a highly limited class in terms of that, what you're getting. But let's take a look at what you're going to be discussing in those 18 hours of instruction. Uh, you're going to be the first one's going to be an introduction to interpersonal communication. There you're going to learn what interpersonal communication is, how that kind of differs from what you have been doing since you were 2 years old, just talking to each other. The importance of interpersonal communication, the impact that it's having on business and the industry. Then we're going to go to the next section, which is what happens when we communicate. We're going to actually talk about the process of communication, which most people really don't have an understanding of what goes on when 2 people are talking to each other. Okay, so you have culture. We'll be talking about how culture plays a role, and your message transmission, and the barriers and the incongruity, active listening, the feedback loops, and all that kind of stuff. Now, these 2 here are pretty important areas because you probably already had classes on active listening, but you're not going to have them like you had on this one. See, the active listening program here is Are You Really Listening is the name of it. And so what I am doing here is, let me get this off here so I can read this better. Uh, Here we are talking about what's involved in hearing. And so I'm not just talking about when you hear somebody, I'm talking about what happens when you hear somebody, and uh, what's going on with your brain. What's that process that's happening, the neuroscience behind listening and hearing. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I've been doing a lot of research into that, and may be able to get some guests who are professionals in that area to come help us during these couple of sessions here. Uh, but we're going to be talking about that, the difference between active listening and everyday listening, and how your brain, your nervous system, and your body all are in a reactive environment. They're basically trained to determine what's going on with you and how that relates to your external world. And you got to realize the other person is experiencing that same thing. So how do you do that? How do you align it so that when you're actively listening, you really are actively listening, and people can recognize that? They may be able to recognize that without you having to report every behavior that they're saying, every mood that they're talking about. Uh, Good negotiators. I know Gary Nessner at the FBI did spent a lot of time talking with Gary and talking about how he formulated the FBI hostage negotiation processes. And if you talk with Gary, you recognize that Gary has this instinctive, I mean, his mind is trained to cope with this because how much he has learned and how he has used it over the years. You can almost sense what's going on. And his ability to actively listen. So, anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about nonverbal behavior and its impact and what happens. I mean, they're right there. It's not just the listening that you're hearing and what you need to know about, but you also need to know what nonverbal cues are doing to your mind and your brain and your nervous system and your body that associate you with creating a meaning to what somebody is actually saying in their words. Okay, because you attach everybody. The tests I've done, and I've done hundreds of people, between 70 and 90% of the time, when you shake your head no and say yes, they say you mean no. And that's because your nonverbal cues are strong signals in that light. So you're going to learn about nonverbal cues, and there's a lot more to nonverbal cues than just eye contact and facial features. Those are kinetic kinds of movements. Your body posture, your gestures, all those are involved in that. Your facial features and eye contact are part of that. Haptics has to do with touching. There's certain ways when you touch somebody, for example, you can create a strong emotional intelligence reaction that is very positive. Or you can touch them the wrong way and you can get sued for sexual harassment. So, we're going to talk a little bit about all of that because I think we've scared the hell out of people so much that they don't touch anybody anymore. And touching has been an integral part of taking down tension in people's lives. Proxemics is another thing. Think about this: like you're in an elevator, you're crammed with a whole bunch of people in it. You're going to go down. You're going to go up 12 floors, and when you're in there, you feel uncomfortable because you don't know anybody. Everybody's looking at the numbers. Nobody, and that's a defensive reaction to kind of push back against your uh, personal space being violated. What's going on with you there? What's happening? You need to understand that because when you're dealing with people, your proximity to them, whether you're across the desk or whether you come out from behind the desk and get in a chair across from where there's open space, doesn't seem to be any kind of division. It could be sort of threatening, etc. Anyway, vocalics, chronemics has to do with timing. Do you pay attention to when you want to talk with somebody? Is it convenient for them or is it always convenient for you? Those kinds of things are what we're going to cover. Communication comes on what I call a timeline. I call it a communication continuum, and it starts with impersonal conversations like "How you doing? What do you do? What do you do for work?" etc. And it moves to intimate conversation, which we won't get into here. But between interpersonal and personal, where work environments are probably somewhere in the areas of these two areas, and impersonal and personal, there are some things you need to understand about that process, what impacts it, what's going on with it. And there are some ways to accelerate an impersonal meeting, the first meeting, to a more personal conversation during that meeting if you know some of the techniques for doing that. Now, we also talk about the ethics of that because you can use that effectively to help you and the other person, or you can use it to control the other person, and 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 that way you're trying to unduly influence them, and that's the unethical approach to it. So we're going to talk about both of those aspects. You're going to understand why people are saying, how can certain people believe the way they do? Well, through this course you're going to begin to understand quickly how people can get there. uh, there's some really bad people who are great communicators, and they're taking people down the wrong road. Then we're going to talk about the power of reason act theory, and this has to do with influence. Most of the communication you do in your life has some element of influence about it. You either want somebody to do something your way, believe the way you want to believe, react the way you want them to react. Most everything you do is that. Not everything, but a large portion of what you're doing has to do with that. So there's some theory and some science behind this that you need to grasp. It goes as far back as Aristotle when you do that. So we're going to be talking about all of those things. Then we are going to talk about persuasion. How if you have to make a persuasive presentation, you have to present maybe as something that's negative, but you have to get people engaged and wanting to follow it. They're not going to want to follow it. How do you couch that? How do you plan that out? All the components that you've learned up to this point fold into your ability. With this ability, as you learn these concepts of what's important in a persuasive argument, you're going to apply every bit of what you've learned up to that point to be successful in getting the engagement you need to get. They may not like it, you may not like it, but you may have to do that at times. That also comes in. You're going to rehash a little between the two, the first one and react theory and this one, but it's important because they connect so closely, and you're going to find out you're going to have a whole repertoire there helping you communicate more effectively and persuading people. Then we're going to talk about building trust through effective communication. Everything you learned up to that point is about helping communication become more effective with your employees, which is going to be focused on building trust. And trust is so critical to any organization and any leadership. So we're going to be talking about that. You're going to find out that communication is really the vehicle you use to build trust. You cannot do it without communicating. You cannot do it in silence. You cannot do it uh, well, all of you'll see is all the component parts of up. They all fold into your ability to build trust and have a positive relationship and connect positively with people you're at. And the last thing we'll cover will be managing conflict, and most people have no idea what that is. It's a lot more. It's a lot more than you. Trying to uh, simply uh, dissolve the frustration or anger. There's resolution involved in it. Are you resolving it? Are you not resolving? Are you just stopping it? Are you resolving it? What kind of conflict are you talking about? Is it a strong value-based conflict? Or is it basic work conflict? So there you have it. It's a pretty comprehensive course. But you will be so much stronger as a leader in the future if you take this course. However, that's up to you. My job is to get people ready, or and that's not my job. I really don't have a job. I'm still in retirement. What I'm trying to do is get this system in place and get people who want to push it. And so I will be starting small. I'll find somebody who wants to do it, and they'll be really good at what they do. And then that's how it's gonna spread. People are gonna see that and they're gonna want to do it. If you have any questions, you can go back to that website that we were just on, www.victorvogel.com, and that'll be in the description. And I look forward to seeing you in class.